Here we're using the PSION Organiser Pocket Spreadsheet Pack. The operating tips in the link below will help those interested. Before we can develop this land surveying spreadsheet in Jape, Jape's excellent emulator, we need to consider the spreadsheet that we exported from the organiser in part 1 of this 2-part series. Open the spreadsheet in Excel and highlight the sheet. Set the decimal places. Set the fixed widths of the columns. Set the font to a font like in the organiser, a fixed width font. Set the column widths. Remove the decimal places from what are integers and hide the 0 values. We're getting ready now to have a look at this sheet in Jape and the emulator. This is what the sheet will look like inside the organiser, although you'll only be able to see part of it on the screen at any one time. So once we've got it how we want, get rid of 0 values, we've got it how we want. Now I'm going to open a browser and open Jape with PSION Organiser LZ inside it. I've got a pack in this. I downloaded a pack from Jape's website, and the operating tips will show you how to do that and where the instructions are for a pocket spreadsheet. Let's start to set up the spreadsheet then. If we open the organiser, we navigate to a menu item called Plan, which is the menu item for the Pocket Spreadsheet. And we need to start to enter some values. We're going to start to enter the column headings. In this mode that I'm in what's called Titles mode. And if you read the manual, it will explain that. You can't actually put the cursor in cell A1. So to get the value into A1, which is the top of the column, the left-hand column, which is remarks, I'm putting it in B2, and then I'm going to copy it into A1. There, copied it into A1, and now I can delete it from B2 because it actually exists in A1. I can go along the top of the columns now. I'm putting some spaces in the before the column headings, so that the column headings look like they're centre justified, because there is no justification left, centre or right in this pocket spreadsheet. I've made a copy of the spreadsheet and just placed it here on the right of the screen to remind me exactly what the column headings look like. So I've got 2 spaces and then backside, and then I go to column C, and the inverted commas tells the pocket spreadsheet to expect text rather than a number, and again I put 2 spaces and then intermediate site, 2 spaces, then foresight. The wider columns for the reduced level, I put 3 spaces, then reduced level, and then the next column HPC, 3 spaces, and then HPC, height plane of collimation. Some people refer to that of height of instrument, but technically the term is height plane of collimation. What we need to do now is we need to make sure that the cells are formatted the right widths. We did that earlier in the spreadsheet. So we'll set cell A to D to 6 columns wide, and we'll set cell E and F to 9 columns wide. Then it will accept all the values, including negative values. Even though the staff will only ever be 4 meters long, there might be a minus sign in front of it, so we need to make sure we've got enough space to accept the minus sign in a staff reading. Once I've set the column widths, I need to set the accepted number of decimal places when we enter some values. And of course, when we're working in construction, we've got meters and millimeters, 3 decimal places for hundreds of millimeters. Now we've got the titles in and we've got the spreadsheet set up to the widths, we need to now enter some formulas. Now these formulas are outlined in detail on the operating tips in the link below. So if you don't get them quickly off the screen here, you will at least be able to get them off the operating tips, and there's a bit of an explanation in there as to what they do. Because what we're saying here is, if C3 is greater or less than 0, what we're doing actually is we're looking to see if there's an intermediate site, then do something, or if there's a HPC, then do something different. And then if not, we're going to enter a 0 value, and then we can put that in as the first reduced level. Notice it's not in the top reduced level. The top reduced level will be supplied. We'll know the starting reduced level on any leveling exercise that we do. So it goes in the second one, and that will calculate the reduced levels depending on if there's a back site or not, because we only ever change if there's an intermediate site or a foresite, because we only ever change the reduced level if there's an intermediate or a foresite, then we can calculate the reduced level. The HPC, slightly different. The HPC checks to see if there's a back site, and if there is a back site, then we need to calculate a new HPC, because we're either just starting or we're at a change point. The only time the HPC changes is if there's a back site. So we can test for that. We can test if there's a value in B, then do something, and if there's a value in, if there's not a value in foresite, then it must be 0. So again, these are explained in more detail in the operating tips, so that you've got more time to read it and try to understand it, and you can type them in and try it out as it goes. We need to copy those. Once we put those formulas in, we need to copy them down the sheet. Now I'm setting the sheet up here to be 19 rows. The bottom, the 20th row will be the sums at the bottom and the all the calculations at the bottom. If you wanted it to be longer, obviously you could make it longer. I'm going to go to the bottom of the sheet now, and if you put a set of dashes across in row 20, that will separate out these checks from any values that you might put in your sheet. The next are some check values, and again, I don't need to teach you these checks, because anybody that's done leveling will know that if we sum the values of the foresites, and we sum the values of the back sites, and we sum the values of the intermediate side of the reduced levels, and sum the values of the used HPCs, then they should be equal, and you can check that they're equal. And again, that's explained in the tips for those that are not as completely up to fare with that. What you should do at this stage, you should probably save it, because you could save this as a blank sheet. Before we put any values in, we could save it as a blank sheet, and then every time we have a leveling project to do, we can open up the blank sheet, resave it with a new name, and then enter some values in, and that way you won't overwrite your blank sheet and have to type this in every time you start, or open a sheet that you've used and delete values. That's always a bit messy. So it's best if we type in the values across the bottom, and when we've got it finished, which is about now, we should then be able to save the sheet successfully. So what that leaves now then is we would open this sheet if we were starting a new project. In this case, we'll just go ahead and use this sheet. So we need to enter some values. If I put the spreadsheet back on the sheet, on the screen, I'll save it. I'm going to call it Save HPC, and then I'll know that that's my HPC blank, and that's my blank, and that's saved on A. It existed, so I've overwritten it. And you could save that to a pack, because it's not going to change that often, this. And it would be safe to save on a pack. Now we need to enter some values, so I'm going to put the spreadsheet back on the screen so we can see exactly what values we're entering, and then we're going to copy these values into this sheet just to confirm that it does actually work. The top line's done. Remarks, backside, intermediate site, foresight, reduced level, HPC's all been done. So the first thing is the temporary benchmark. That's usually a backside. That's a known point, and that had a reduced level of 10 meters. So I can type in temporary benchmark, and I can go to the first cell, which we know is empty, in the first reduced level, waiting for a value, and that gives me the 10 meters. I can then enter the backside value. You need to enter the values in the order that you would enter them when you're booking them in field. So you book down your remarks, the station where you're at, then you book down your, in this case you book down your reduced level, then you book down your backside, then you book down your intermediate sites, and then you book down a foresight. What you'll notice on the screen is when we enter a value, there's a slight pause between entering the value and it coming and getting the screen back. That's because it's recalculating the whole grid every time you enter a value. So I can turn that off. I can use recalc, and I can set recalc to manual, and now every time I enter a value, it doesn't need to recalculate the whole sheet. And if I want it to recalculate the sheet, I just press exit twice. I press it when I enter the value, then I press exit again, execute, and then execute will then force it to recalculate the sheet. Now we're going down the sheet, entering the values, copying the values that are on the spreadsheet we did in Excel, just to make sure. The soffit value that I'm entering here, that's to show that this will take care of any inverse staff readings. So if you're surveying around a building and you've got the footpaths and the drains and the fences, but you've also got the underside of lintels and the underside of lampposts, the underside of bridges, then you'll enter a negative staff reading, and that will be taken care of in the spreadsheet. And if you can look on the spreadsheet on the right, then the negative value gives a reduced level of the underside of the soffit of 13 and a bit meters. So that is the distance to that soffit value. As we work down the sheet, as I said before, we must enter the values in the orders in which you would book them. So we enter the remark, and then we enter the intermediate site, and then eventually you'll come to a change point, or the end of the project. But here it's a change point. We're going to change the position of the instrument. So the procedure there is to enter the remarks, enter the foresight as you've read on the instrument and you've booked, and then you would move the instrument, and then you would take a backside of the same point, so it goes on the same line because it's reading the change point. And if you look on the spreadsheet on the right, it keeps the same reduced level for the change point, but it recalculates the HPC because it's a new backside. The height of the instrument, or the height of the plane of the collimation, is now set up to that new instrument position, 10.4 on the spreadsheet on the right. Now we'll check that when you get your when you get all the data entered into here, and you'll see that it's the same. So we're getting towards the bottom of the spreadsheet, and I'm going to do a check. When I was taking these readings, I actually did a return reading back to a known point, which was point D. So I called it return to D, RTDD. And now, when I calculate the reduced level, I can see how much of an error I've got, because I can look at the two different values for D, and there is a difference, and that'll tell me how much of an error I've got when I'm actually out in the field and how good I've been booking it. So that's about it. That's all for now. Good luck.